Well, yesterday was Tariff Day and chaos ensued here in Canada all over the place. You had representatives from Canada show up in DC and not get any meetings. We had committee meetings starting up in Ottawa, and those got wild. We find out the Liberal Party really exposing how much they love Chinois, good old China, and Xi Jinping. And the Conservative Party, the opposition party, is really lighting it up and calling out what it all is. You can be sad, you can be mad, you can laugh, you can do whatever you want. But the one thing is clear, things are wild. And we're going to be getting into all of it today. Welcome to the Elevate Podcast. I'm your host, Josh. I'm grateful to be back on with you yet again. If you get any value from today's episode, take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us to grow, helps us to get to new audiences, and helps people to see that there's something different than what the mainstream media and their crying rooms have to offer today. Now, let's get into our first story, shall we? It's a little short clip here. Very, very interesting what happened here. Our Canadian officials showed up in DC today after we get 35% tariffs applied to everything outside of anything that is USMCA non-compliant. And our leaders showed up, our representatives showed up to have conversations with their counterparts, and they got the door shut in their face. Listen to this.
His lead minister on the file is coming back from DC tonight without meeting with any new Americans today. But His lead minister on the file is coming back from D.C. tonight without meeting with any new Americans today. But Dominic LeBlanc's office assures us he is keeping in touch with his U.S. counterpart, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Heather?
So that's how good things are going from a negotiation perspective. Remember what I was talking about earlier? Where we only ever hear how negotiations are going from the American side of this. Our Canadian side, our leaders, our prime minister, our leading party have given us next to nothing of what is happening with these negotiations. All we've received is trust Big Daddy Carney. He's got it all covered. But when we hear the murmurings, we hear the whispers, we hear the rumors coming out that things are going terribly. When you have to ask the opposition former PM about how to deal with negotiating these tariffs, i.e. Stephen Harper, you know things are going bad. We've known this. But now we're starting to see visual indicators of how bad it really is. When you have your representatives show up in DC to have more conversations about these tariffs, and they say, bye, there's no one here to talk to. It's Friday. See ya. That's what Canadians are getting right now. It is completely out of control. And it is really funny. Conservatives are saying, told you so. Liberals are saying, no, it's all Donald Trump's fault. Before he showed up, everything was fine. But now everything's a mess. My friends, if I remember correctly, Donald Trump isn't who you were voting for. You were voting for someone to fight Donald Trump. That was the rhetoric in the last campaign. Elbows up. We're going to show them what's up. We're going to fight. We're going to take them out. We are going to show them what Canada's all about. And guess what? Canada tried to be tough and retaliate. Canada tried to be tough and talk a big game. Canada tried to be tough and got nothing. We have the 5th highest tariffs out of any of the countries in the world right now. No matter how Mark Carney and his people try to dress it up, it's like, oh, if you average it out across all the goods, including the USMCA goods, it's only like 1% tariff. It's not a big deal. My goodness. Tell that to the steel workers. Tell that to the softwood lumber workers. Tell that to the dairy workers. Let me know how that goes. That is utterly stupid and irresponsible and, quite frankly, insensitive to the people who are working in these industries. You're doing nothing to protect them. You're doing nothing to support them. You're going to print more money to give to them, skyrocket their dollar, and completely price housing out of their reach forever. That's what you're doing right now. It's a joke. This is a joke. I'm not impressed with our leaders. I'm not impressed with what they're doing. And it's one thing to be the guys like, oh, this stinks, but I get it. But quite frankly, I'm very concerned where this is going. I'm not happy with what I'm seeing. I'm not a fan of the Liberal Party. I'm not a fan of what they've been doing. I'm not a fan of how they've treated our country over the past 10 years. However, I'm still rooting for them because I love my country. And when they're doing bad things and they're being irresponsible and completely incompetent, then I have something to say about it. And I'm frustrated. Because that was the big news today. Remember I was talking about the different LNG terminals in the United States versus Canada? We have 1 to their 7. We have 1 billion cubic feet a day that we are able to export to the USA's 14, and how the US is really just kind of taking us over in all the markets that we currently have. Remember I was telling you about that? And then we have these 35% tariffs on these core sectoral industries that we have in our country. And this is the news we get today. One of our major energy companies, Enbridge, says, bye-bye, we're starting to move to the United States because it's so much easier to do work down there. And there's so much in the way of red tape and hurdles up here in Canada. We can't do business here anymore. It's almost like the thing we said was going to happen is starting to happen. Pierre Poilievre called it out today. He says one of Canada's major pipeline companies says they're moving more money, jobs, and construction to the United States because the Carney Liberals are making it impossible to build here. Another elbows down concession by Carney to the U.S. Axe the industrial carbon tax, repeal the no pipelines law, legalize oil shipments off the northern BC coast, make Canada strong, sovereign, and self-reliant. 100%. That is common sense. It makes complete sense that we should be doing those things. Repealing these bills instead of adding another bill to try and work away yourself around those bills is absolute stupidity. But guess what? Mark Carney's the green energy guy. He's the net zero king. You know, the magic trick of when a school costs $8 million to build and then it skyrockets to $40 million because it's got to be net zero. You know that magic trick? Yes. Mark Carney's the king of that. And as I said before, he's in this to enrich himself. He's in this to try and make more money through his green initiative. That's why you're seeing such incompetence. It's not so much incompetence. It's starting to come clear to me. This is planned. And it's going exactly how he wanted it to go. It's frustrating. It stinks as an onlooker. But this is a systemic breakdown that is just too obvious for it to be simple incompetence. They're chasing everything away to the United States. And Donald Trump is gobbling it all up as he should. Michelle Rempel-Garner and other conservative MPs are sharing this today. U.S. tariffs on Canada before Carney. Softwood lumber is 14.4%. Energy, 10%. Critical minerals, 10%. Potash, 10%. Steel and aluminum, 25%. And other non-CUSMA goods, 25%. After 5 months of Carney, this is what we got. Softwood lumber, 27.3%. Energy, still 10%. Critical minerals, still 10%. Potash, still 10%. Steel and aluminum, 50%. Cars and trucks, 25%. Copper, 50%. Other non-CUSMA goods, 35%. I hate to admit it. He's making Trudeau look like a good prime minister. And again, this goes back to what I've been saying. The liberal people, those who support the liberal party are just saying, oh, it's all Donald Trump's fault. This isn't Mark Carney. This is Donald Trump's fault. You knew what you're getting when you voted for Mark Carney. Donald Trump wasn't going anywhere. You said Mark Carney could get this done. He'll take care of Donald Trump. And now he's not taking care of Donald Trump. Now we're getting back to just hating Trump because Mark Carney is proving he's not able to handle this. He's not able to belly up to the bar and be a leader through this uncertain time. And again, August 1st was yesterday. Committee hearings were starting to take place. Big one that came about was the fact that Canada lent $1 billion to BC to get 4 ferries built. BC then took that money and decided to commission those boats over to a shipyard in China to get them built. We have tariffs on China right now when it comes to steel and aluminum. And more specifically, we have 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum on China so that we can use our own steel to maybe create our own boats and keep business here and keep our people employed. That's the point of a tariff if you have the industry here. And those committee hearings took place yesterday. First one being with MP Dan Albus, Conservative, grilling the Minister of Transport, Chrystia Freeland, former finance minister here in Canada, to Justin Trudeau. And this went just how you think it would go.
Minister, it sounds like you're comfortable with the loan going out and supporting effectively the outsourcing of Canadian jobs to subsidize them over in the People's Republic of China at a Chinese state-owned shipyard. And You're speaking of letters. I have your letter here dated June 16th, 2025, and it says, I am dismayed that BC Ferries would select a Chinese state-owned shipyard to build new ferries in the current geopolitical context. I ask you verify and confirm with the utmost certainty that no federal funding will be diverted to support the acquisition of these new ferries. Did you know that the Canada Infrastructure Bank was going to be funding $1 billion of taxpayers' money to the acquisition of these vessels when you wrote this letter?
So let me first take issue, if I may, with...
Short answer, she did. There's proof of it, but now she's going to give a word salad answer because that's how these hearings go.
Your opening comment. I am dismayed by this procurement. I have made that very, very clear. And it's not just rhetoric. I have acted. I'm the transport minister. I was and am aware that there is money that goes from transport operating support for the operation of ferries in British Columbia. It was very important to me to make formally clear an insistence that none of that operating money be used for this procurement, and I have received those assurances. Second of all, and as importantly, I am taking active steps to ensure that in going forward purchases of anything that Transport Canada has control over, we are putting a priority on Canadian manufacturing jobs, on Canadian steel, and on Canadian aluminum. We are not just talking about it, we are actually working to do it, and that is really important. And I have to say, I was very encouraged by the conversation I had today with C-SPAN. They're excited to be part of this work.
So that was that answer where she essentially lied. She did know. She did know that that money is going to it, and she allowed it to happen. And this back and forth happens over a handful of minutes. And Mr. Albus gets absolutely frustrated and lambasts her because of her non-answers and her outright lying in committee. And to those who are new to the Canadian context, you cannot call someone a liar during committee. You can say the word falsehoods. You can't outright accuse someone of being a liar. However, Dan Albus says all but that and lights her up.
Minister, again, you have an opportunity. You could say, no, we don't want to have an industrial carbon tax, which will put our steel workers at a disadvantage. That is something that your government has said that they want to do. Now, Minister, do you support the review of the remission framework by the Prime Minister to target cheap foreign steel that come from countries like the PRC?
I was very glad as finance minister last June for the first time to announce that Canada would be putting tariffs of 25% on Chinese steel and 100% on Chinese EVs. We announced that last June, had a consultation, and in October of last year, for the first time, those tariffs went into place. So this is an issue that I've worked on for a long time,
Eric McNeely is
and
the
I have a
president
lot of conviction there.
of the BC Ferry and Marine Workers Union, and he wants to know why your government will say that it will put tariffs of 25% on cheap steel from countries like China, yet it seems like you're going to let this one go by tariff-free. Think of all the aluminum and all the steel components that go into making these ships, Minister. So what do you have to say to Eric McNeely and the people that he represents?
The voice of labor in these issues is absolutely essential, and that's why at the shipbuilding meeting that we are convening, we will be inviting unions to participate. It is absolutely important right now, given the tariffs the Canadian steel sector is facing, for us to find uses for Canadian steel in Canada, and I am utterly committed to doing that.
Minister, you know, those steel and aluminum tariffs were threatened by Donald Trump months ago, and yet it's only now that this committee started putting the heat on that you started this Made in Canada approach with those groups that are underneath your watch. So you won't say we want to cancel the industrial carbon tax. You won't say you're going to cut red tape and be competitive. You simply will refuse to. You're totally silent when it comes to the loan. of $1 billion by the Canada Infrastructure Bank to offshore effectively Canadian jobs in steel, aluminum, and shipbuilding. And everything you're offering here, Minister, is talk. You have failed the test. It's August 1st. We have an executive order that's come in. You come to this committee and you talk. You're not willing to do the basics, which is to, no, let me just finish here.
Well, the
basics
seconds,
of standing up for Canadian workers. This was your opportunity. You and your government
Thank you
failed.
very much, Mr.
He says what it is. He says exactly what we're all thinking. You have the opportunity. You said elbows up. You're going to take care of Canadians. This is what you said you were running on. And you've done nothing. Dan Albus, venting all the frustrations that we're all feeling. The minute you could put Canadian workers first, you decide not to. You decide to cozy up to China, which the Liberal Party is essentially an extension at this point of the Communist Party of China. I'll be honest. When Justin Trudeau is sitting in meetings with members of the United Front, when Mark Carney is at events, talking to media, that is an extension of the CCP. They're just an extension of China at this point. And it's no surprise that they would sell us out the first chance they get. Waive this project tariff-free in order to get things built in China. Screwing our workers 6 ways a Sunday. That's how they do it. And there was another moment in these committee hearings where the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure was questioned about China and how close the Liberal Party and this government has been getting to them. And he asks a simple question that he can't get an answer to. It's going to leave your jaw wide open.
So some things have changed, some things have not. So I'll just ask you a couple quick yes or no questions. Would you agree that the People's Republic of China is a dictatorship?
To the chair, I'm here to speak for my ministry and not to make geopolitical assertions.
It's a pretty basic question. I mean, if we're giving $1 billion of taxpayer money to a state-owned company, we should probably be on the same page of whether this country is a dictatorship or not.
To the chair, I want to clarify that the government of Canada made an investment and created an infrastructure bank that is arm's length from government to invest in infrastructure here in Canada. And we do not have direction on what those investments are specifically. We trust that to a board.
Minister, do you like President Xi's chances in the next election?
Point of order.
I'm sorry. That was a savage moment right there. That was a great moment for Aaron Gunn. I'll spoil it for you. There will be no election for Xi Jinping. Continue.
Thank you.
May I
Yes,
ask
one
how
moment,
this is-
everybody. Mr. Gunn, I'm going to pause your time. You have a minute left, roughly. Ms. Wien.
I'm just curious how this is relevant back
Well,
to the conversation that we're having
We're
about
giving $1 billion in taxpayer money to a country that is a dictatorship that is abusing human rights. I think it's relevant.
It's her point of order, Mr. Gunn. It's a valid point of order on that particular question. Let's try and make sure that we use the time that we have with the minister to ask questions relating to the BC Ferries contract. So I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Gunn, and ask you to be more specific about issues relating to the BC Ferries contract.
I think this is very specific. Mr. Minister, do you believe that the People's Republic of China is currently engaged in unfair trade practices and tariffs against Canadian agricultural and seafood sectors?
Through the chair, I certainly will speak strongly in favor of Canadian agriculture, Canadian workers. Our industries should come first. This procurement happened through BC Ferries. It's not a decision that the government of Canada had anything to do with.
But you're subsidizing it with $1 billion in taxpayer money, are you not, Minister?
Through the chair, this investment from the Canada Infrastructure Bank is in BC Ferries. It is a loan to BC Ferries for a procurement that they've done. So it is not the government of Canada making these decisions. It is the Infrastructure Bank financing BC Ferries, and BC Ferries made the decision on the procurement.
But Mr. Minister, it is the government of Canada and your department that sets the policies that guides the bank that then invests or loans at below market interest rates taxpayers' money. Do you agree with the Prime Minister of this country that China is Canada's biggest national security threat?
Through the chair, I don't see where that comes into play.
He
it's
can't
a BC
answer it.
Ferries procurement decision, and
Well, Mr. Minister, we're giving them $1 billion in taxpayer money to subsidize a dual-use
thank you,
civilian
Mr. Gunn.
military industry.
He's calling it for what it is. How embarrassing is that? That gives you an idea. Gregor Robertson used to be the mayor of Vancouver, and we know what's going on in BC. lots of Chinese influence in BC these days from the CCP. And he can't give a direct answer and speak against China. These people are bought off and will 100% sell Canada out for Chinese interests the first chance they get. And they're showing it in these meetings. And we're going to keep a close eye on it. And we're going to keep reporting the stories to you. Please take a deep breath. Go outside. Enjoy your weekend. Let's put this one behind us. But it's always good to stay informed. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.